Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th International Project Management Association Research Conference. We are very glad to see you all today in Belgrade and that Belgrade got the chance to host you all today. We really hope that you enjoyed your day yesterday and we wish you a successful day today and tomorrow. As you know, we are now in the building of National Academy for Public Administration, which started in 2018. Our hosts today is, of course, IPMA Serbia, so thank you very much for that. Today's topic and the topic of today's conference is value co-creation in the project society. Through a series of panels, workshops, and roundtables, you will discuss many theories, methodologies, and best practices in the world on value co-creation, also business projects for society, digitalization, and many other things. But I will let people in charge tell you more about it. Please welcome Dr. Dejan Miletić, Head of National Academy for Public Administration.
Good afternoon to everyone. Well-known, familiar faces, smileys. Good to know you, all your people here. But I will read my speech because I'm not going to take the show from Vladimir. Vladimir is always speaking by heart. Okay. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by wishing you a warm welcome to the National Academy for Public Administration, the central institution for professional development of public administration employees of the Republic of Serbia. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you here with us. We are very proud of being hosts of this conference another year in a row, and for having traditionally fruitful collaboration with IPMA Serbia, which lasts more than 5 years. Thank you, Vladimir, for that. Our institution is very young, founded in 2018, and in this short period, our academy became a symbol of innovation, modernization, and digitalization. Our vision and activities have helped us to consolidate our place as a leader of public administration, not only in the region. And we couldn't have been able to reach these heights without our activities and goals being project-oriented. We can say that project management is more widespread and visible in private sector, but do not underestimate public sector and public administration. We are putting an extreme effort to make project management an integral part of our core business. NAPA is a relatively small collective, counting 30 civil servants, and since the beginning, project management sector makes part of our organizational structure. Another example of our project orientation is the Academy's project database, a custom-made program created with the NAPA's project donated by Swedish government and UNDP as implementing partner. Our colleague will present it to you briefly tomorrow. Project-oriented activities position NAPA as a reliable and attractive partner for more international organizations and donors such as European Union, UNDP, Government of Sweden, Switzerland, and Germany, with whom we have a successful ongoing cooperation and which trusted us with multi-million direct grants. I must say, I was impressed with the list of participants of this year's conference. And I'm always happy to be among experts, as I'm university professor, among the other things. The theme of this year's conference, Value Co-creating in Project Society, will bring us all together and I'm sure will provide meaningful insights for all of us. Wishing you all effective discussion in those 2 days and pleasant stay in our premises, and of course in Belgrade in Serbia. We are trying to be good hosts, and don't forget that. Count on us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Miletić, thank you for your kind words. It's good to know that the government is investing so much in public administration. And now we will hear from, of course, the organizer, the president of IPMA Serbia, Professor Vladimir Obradović.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for the kind words. Well, we improved a lot since last year. Some of you that have been here last year after the COVID could remember that I couldn't tie up my jacket then, but now I can. So there is improvement in every area. I've been working on that for a whole year. And hopefully we will also have some improvement in this year's work and conference. We started organizing this some 9 months ago, and when we talked about potential topics of the conference, many ideas were there, and especially thanking Martina for helping us in selecting, combining projectification, value co-creation, putting that all together, because if we take a look, of course, majority of activities now are done via projects. You all know that. I need not to speak that much about it. But also, we need to collaborate more, to work together so that we create value for our society. We have seen that during the pandemic, in post-COVID era. So I think that the topic of this year's conference, which is co-creation, value co-creation in a project society, is just what we need as a society and academic and practitioner community. Also, when we were thinking on how to make this conference look like, how to make this happen, we tried to combine that also with the great support of Ding Rongi, Vice President for Research, who is unfortunately not today with us here because he couldn't leave China due to some restrictions. We decided to start working more on combining collaboration in R&D between practice and academia, so that we can jointly try to solve problems for our societies. So that is also strategic orientation of this conference, greatly supported by Ding. Hence, we have, of course, stream presentations during the next 2 days with scientific papers, but a lot of other activities, like Dusan mentioned in the opening, panels, round tables, discussion, and we think that we will not only hear new developments in the scientific area, but among practitioners and scientists draw some conclusions and directions for future research. Having in mind that our conference is, dealing with creation, bringing new ideas and innovation in society, in projects, we're happy that we have distinguished and really top-tier keynotes. First of all, I would like to thank Mutu De Silva for joining us here in Belgrade, flying all over from London with many obstacles and flight delays. And she will start talking about how we actually co-create value, since basically it's all happening in projectification, in projectified society. We are very thankful for Antonio Nieto, who will share his newest thoughts and findings in the domain of project economy. I think it's very valuable for all of us. And then, of course, we have to make it all last and reach long-lasting. In fact, that's why tomorrow Gilbert Silvius will be talking about sustainability in project management. Thank you, Gilbert, for having you here. And at last but no mean least, we will have Oli Mekel, who will be talking about how we can improve and digitalize our project. So thank you for joining us here. Also, I'm very happy that in terms of research and publication, we have really the best people in the world here with us at this conference. Next to Martina, we have Ralph Miller, Louis Klein, Natalie. Sorry if I have forgotten someone, but really editors of the best journals in this area in the world. There are 3 of them, EC ranked with impact factor, and all the editors are here. So I think we will also conclude and learn something from that. We have workshops for young researchers to support their research at the beginning, to help them develop their papers and dissertations, but also to help them publish in top-tier journals. So I think there is pretty much something for everyone. I would also like to thank Silvia from Slovak Republic. She's somewhere here, I cannot see her, for telling us, she will be telling us how certification, especially in the domain of coaches, consultants, and trainers, could help us grow our careers, improve our curricula, but also help society grow. And at last but not least, I would like to thank 2 organizations that make all this possible, make this all happen. Of course, IPMA, with the long-lasting support. Once again, I thank to the executive board and the president for supporting us in this and giving us trust, and chance, and opportunity to organize this conference. National Academy for Public Administration, our strategic partner, who is doing this jointly with us and letting us use this wonderful state-of-the-art premises for our conference. Our Serbian Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Development, who supported this, and Elsevier as a sponsor also. I wish you 2 pleasant days with a lot of effective work, but most importantly, I wish you good dinner and good fun today during the conference gala dinner, where the awards will be granted to people that have fairly deserved it. Thank you once again, and enjoy your work.
Thank you, Professor Obradović. And as Professor Obradović said, it is time to hear from keynote speakers. I invite Professor Mutu de Silva, Assistant Dean, School of Business Economics and Informatics at Birkbeck University of London. She will be speaking on project co-creation with community, simultaneous generation of social and business value.
So the 3 things then I'll be focusing on: what are the models that we could use to co-create value, and what sort of best practices that we could adopt, and finally, what is the role of the government? And you have been talking about the significance of public engagement, so I will touch that point too. Okay, what do we mean by co-creation? In order to understand that, I thought we could just revisit how the innovation practices have been changing over time. Until about 1990s, we all thought that we could achieve the best by doing everything in-house within our organizational boundaries, and we could keep everything a secret to ourselves. However, maybe after about 1990s, businesses and other organizations have realized this cannot be done. And then after about 1990s, we have realized we don't have everything in-house, like the knowledge, the skills, the networks required to address some of the challenges. Then businesses were open to share knowledge with each other. But then after about 2010, the businesses realized, okay, yes, sharing is good, but perhaps we could do more by integrating our resources, by integrating our knowledge and networks. So especially, this was important to address some of the grand challenges. We kind of encountered COVID-19, and then the aging, climate change. Those kind of challenges could be resolved by integrating the strengths of different actors in our ecosystem. So this is what I mean by co-creation here. So the actors of the innovation ecosystem, such as universities, businesses of different sizes, intermediaries, government, and more importantly, the community, working together closely to resolve challenges that they cannot resolve in their individual, independent organizational boundaries. And then some of the key characteristics of co-creation, yes, they are working together and they integrate their resources, knowledge and networks. And also we need to understand co-creation is not a substitute for internal research and development activities. Because what this means is firms and other organizations should be engaging in internal research and development activities as well. However, they will follow the route of co-creation only when they realize that certain objectives cannot be achieved in-house. We need to work with other parties of the innovation ecosystem to exploit certain opportunities or to address some of the grand challenges. And also, yes, institutions are important, but when it comes to co-creation, people are the key. So if look at us as a community, we could integrate our strengths to make the world a better place or to resolve some of the challenges. But what this means is we have to work together regardless of our other affiliations. And also, co-creation would help us to simultaneously generate more than one type of value. So I'll touch on that point in a minute. And then, why do we have to engage with the community? I know that it's not easy, but why? What sort of strengths the community bring to the table? The community will bring the expertise. There might be a lot of experts in the community, IT experts, or having expertise in other domains. And also, community has got the experience of being a user. So for user-centric co-creation, that means for an organization, if they want to develop new products and services, they might want to work with the community of users. And also, they will have a greater understanding of community needs as well as community interest. And they have the drive to generate social value. So when you combine all these things, it very nicely fits to the Cambridge definition of community, kind of a group of individuals who may live in a specific area or who may have some of the common interest or who may belong to a specific social group or nationality. So these are the strengths the community will bring to the co-creation project. Okay, I have been talking about co-creation and you might wonder, okay, it looks nice as a concept. Can you show me some practical applications? So here I have highlighted 5 different models of co-creation, practically happening co-creation projects. And the first one, the umbrella programs for co-creation. One example is the Canada Innovation Supercluster Program. So in those government-led programs, they offer funding, resources and networks, and they advertise call for applications. So the community members, in collaboration with other actors of innovation ecosystem, could make an application for those government programs. And how does it generate social and business value? When the community is involved, they generate social value. Also, these specific government programs are mission-oriented programs. What this means is government programs are designed in such a way to address societal challenges. But then businesses are involved as members of these projects. Why? Yes, they would like to generate social value. Also, sometimes addressing of these challenges will also generate business value. I will highlight another example later on how we could generate both social and business value. But here what I wanted to highlight was this is a role government could play as an initiator and funder of certain programs. So they would invite community to work with other actors of innovation ecosystem. What this means is the government will work very closely with the community and other actors of the ecosystem, with universities, with businesses, in order to develop policies, but jointly. Why should government do that? Because community is the best source of knowledge about community needs. Because we have policies to serve the community, to serve the society. When we bring their perspective together, we could develop better policies. Especially this was evident during the COVID-19 period. One example is Austria's COVID-19 pop-up hub, but this is happening even beyond the pandemic as well. So here, what is interesting is that the community has a voice to shape government policies. Government could come up with better policy making. Now we could talk about open source communities. I think most of you are aware of, especially that happens in the IT sector. So in the open source communities, community of experts work together to resolve a specific challenge. And one example is Google's AI Kaggle Challenge program. So in this Kaggle Challenge, they post a challenge to the community, and community work in a digital platform. They together develop algorithms to resolve this specific challenge. So these challenges are based on social needs or the community needs, and open source means it's open for everybody. So this is another example. And then community involved innovation. So I'm sure you all have heard about Living Labs. The purpose of Living Labs is to offer a platform for businesses to work with users in order to jointly produce products and services. Especially if you look at Lego, most of the products are developed with the users. So this is an example, Amazon Living Lab. So FPF work very closely with the users. So who were the users? Hospitals, handicap associations, handicaps, rehabilitation institutions, as well as government, in order to develop equipment to enhance the mobility of handicapped people. So why did they work with the community? Because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to come up with equipment that would have a perfect match to the needs of handicapped people. Why did they work with the government? Because it has enhanced the efficiency of regulations. Because regulatory requirements were already embedded at the development of design. Then the final is Social Innovation Lab. So this is an example of Social Innovation Lab. Example from the UK, the Kent Council of the UK, they wanted to change or develop the Kent Council, a dementia-friendly community. So rather than the government doing it by itself, government decided to work with the community to come up with an action plan as to how to do it. Then they together implemented it. So they work with the students, the volunteers, the charities, care homes. And also, they also work with businesses. They train the business staff in order to be able to better serve dementia patients as well as their carers. So, you know, for obvious reason, it generated social value. But then, why did businesses involve in it? Yes, for corporate social responsibility, but didn't they generate business value? But they did. Because of the enhanced service capabilities, they were able to generate better profit. So, and then, so these are just kind of examples in very brief sense. Now moving into what sort of collaboration instruments that we could use to implement community-based co-creation projects. We can use digital platforms and tools. We observe it during the COVID-19 period, how efficient digital technologies are. So we could use digital platforms to match partners, connect partners together, and also to share and integrate data. During the pandemic, we did magic with the data. Businesses work with the community in terms of integrating data to resolve some of the challenges. And also, we could use co-creation networks. Government could act as a really great networker who could bring different parties together. Also, sometimes universities and intermediaries could bring partners together for project co-creation. And then the hackathons. I'm sure you may have heard about hackathons, but just to explain, it is a very short time period, like 3 to 4 days. People are working together to resolve a specific challenge. And businesses, as well as the representatives of the community, are working together in those hackathons. They are very targeted to specific challenges, but after that intensive period, the beauty of it is that some of the solutions that could be implemented in the real world can spin out as companies. So, since the initial objective was to generate social value, these companies will invariably generate social value, but since they spin out as companies, they would generate commercial value as well. Having commercial value would help social value generation to be scaled up. And finally, the obvious one is the funding and scholarship offered by the government or any other sources. So this would help to pool knowledge, network, and resources. So this is another really important co-creation instrument. And then what are the best practices of community engaged co-creation? First, I have highlighted 5 models, but there are millions of other models of co-creation. What this means is there is no one-size-fits-all model. So we need to select the right model, but I could only highlight some of the criteria that we could use to select the right model. This criteria could be, we need to be very specific. Why do we want to co-create? What is our objective? What is the objective of our partners? And also, if we could build on our previous relationships, that would be wonderful, because previous working relationship would make sure that we have the trust. And also, urgency of responding would also determine the nature of the model that we want to adopt. During the COVID-19, we came up with a lot of innovative models to co-create with the community because we wanted to respond urgently. And also the scale of the challenge. Yes, the co-creation, community-based co-creation would be important to address some of the mass challenges such as climate change or aging. Also, some of the specific challenges for the society and businesses. So based on the scale of the challenge, we need to decide the type of the model. And then offering right incentives. So you may think, yes, community would involved in the co-creation project because they want to generate social value. But we have to be very careful there. They may have other objectives as well. So understanding those other objectives and offering opportunities for them to fulfill those objectives is the key. Some of these objectives that we have identified in our research are, they need to interact with powerful stakeholders of future value, or they want to work on specific technologies, especially in the open source communities. They want to capitalize on their expertise, or they wanted to access funding. And also they wanted to work on projects with long-term strategic value. So understanding incentives and offering opportunities are really important. And when we design our co-creation projects, we need to see if we could leverage our existing assets. What sort of infrastructure do we have? What sort of networks do we have? Think about those elements. Agile management practices. We have to really have a flat organizational structure. All the co-creation partners should be able to reach each other very quickly. And the communication is really important. And designing tasks to each and every partner and checking how these tasks are being performed. And also, if required, redirect the project if something is not happening. All these are really important. Finally, especially for businesses who are involved in community-based co-creation, they have to make a very careful decision as to what objectives should I be achieving in-house within my organizational boundaries, because for obvious reason businesses are not there just to generate social value. They have a business mission. So they may have some of the competitive advantages, they may have some of the trade secrets. So they need to think very carefully, how could I engage in co-creation projects without having some negative consequences on my business mission? And especially, what are the innovation activities I would like to engage in through in-house R&D? What are the objectives I need to achieve through knowledge or resource exchange? And what are the objectives I need to be achieving through co-creation? Because it's very difficult for me to give a one-size-fits-all answer here, because this is dependent upon the objectives. I could only highlight some of the criteria that we need to consider. And then we know we work together because we cannot do things in-house. What this means is we are likely to have heterogeneous partners coming from different disciplines. So I know that we are going to have a fabulous roundtable on multidisciplinarity tomorrow, I think, but I will just use this slide to offer a bit of a starting point for that roundtable. And here, yes, multidisciplinarity is the key to resolve some of the challenges. But we know that multidisciplinarity is not easy. It's very difficult. I'm sure those who have tried it in this room would know it's very difficult. But how can we overcome challenges of multidisciplinarity and achieve the best through this heterogeneity? In order to understand that, we need to see what sort of multidisciplinarity that we may have. Of course, disciplinary differences. In addition to that, they may have different goals. They may have access to different networks and resources. And also, they may have coming from different cognitions, that is knowledge bases. But what we can do is, through team management could mean better communication, transparency, relationship management, as well as reasoning. We can achieve bit of goal congruence, and we need to think about how different networks and resources of partners could be brought together to achieve the goal congruence, and how we could recombine different knowledge bases to achieve specific goal. So that the reasoning here is very important, especially for partners to feel that they are part of the co-creation project. It's because if you achieve specific objective, not the other objective of a partner, then you have to explain to the partner why the project has decided to go in this direction but not in the other direction. Why did you not decide to use some of the resources of a specific partner? Because otherwise, if you feel that you are neglected, then they are unlikely to be committed to the project. And then the other way to manage multidisciplinarity could be to use intermediaries, because they could support these kinds of heterogeneities, and to use the known and successful collaborative instruments. I have discussed some of the instruments previously, and also to try to leverage on existing assets. All these things would help us to mitigate the challenges of multidisciplinarity. And another best practice of community-based co-creation, we need to think about, okay, do we want to end the project by the end of the project life cycle, or do we want to develop output that could be transferred beyond the project life cycle? So if we want to transfer output beyond the project life cycle, what should we be doing? The first, at the point of designing the project, we need to think about broader applications. So if you look at even COVID-19 projects, yes, the main kind of target was to resolve some of these challenges. But then some of them decided the project with the intention of having broader applications beyond the COVID. So here the point being, if you want to make sure that outcomes are transferred beyond the project life cycle, we need to think about it at the beginning of the co-creation project. We cannot just do it at the end. and then to think about how can we capitalize on some of the infrastructure used for the co-creation project beyond the life cycle. For instance, during the COVID-19 period, USA used or they integrated high-performance computing to support some of the co-creation projects. But then they also had a vision. They wanted to use these integrated high-performance computing infrastructure beyond COVID period. So they had a strategic roadmap. So think about how we could capitalize on the infrastructure beyond the project lifetime. And the other 2 points are really important. You should be able to match social needs and commercial needs together. I will give an example here. This is the example from the UK. They wanted to mitigate illegal wildlife trade. So most of you may think, well, it's a social problem, then the government should be funding it, right? So you fund the project, and then or what will happen if just government fund the project, then there won't be any continuation after the project life cycle. But they introduced a really innovative model. They thought, yes, we need some funding, some of the seed funding, which they got from Foreign Commonwealth Office and EJF Philanthropies. Then they used that funding to support 4 startups who have developed technologies that enable the mitigation of illegal wildlife trade. Why did they support these startups to grow? Because they know that if these startups could grow and keep on developing these technologies, there will be a continuous flow of technologies helping to mitigate illegal wildlife trade. So this was really innovative way in which they did it. So what was the part of the community? They work with the community to develop the technologies. And also they got a technological support from Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, as well as field expertise, network building and business model development of these startups. They got it from Digital Catapult and Satellite Application Catapult. Those are intermediaries in the UK. So this is what I thought, having innovative models. Yes, we need to generate social value, but we need to think about commercially sustainable way in which the social challenges could be addressed. Because this is commercially sustainable, these businesses would generate profit that would be reinvested on developing technologies to mitigate illegal wildlife trade. And finally, what is the role of government or policy? Briefly, of course, as a provider of funding, but beyond that, government has got a lot of strengths. They could work as a network builder. They could develop clusters, they could develop ecosystem who could work together, and also they could bring different partners together to co-create. And they could also help these partners to merge social and commercial interest so that social value creation could be scaled up through commercial models. And also they could act as a collaborator. During the COVID-19 period, we saw a lot of co-creation projects where government initiated and government was a collaborator. Government has got really great knowledge of macro environment, network, the power. They could play a greater role as a collaborator and initiator of most of these co-creation projects. And also they could be a legitimizer or endorser. Community would have a greater incentive to engage in a project that is endorsed by the government. And finally, as I have discussed, they could engage more and more in participatory or evidence-based policy making. Okay, so I think I'm exactly on time. So the conclusions, the first, I think I made the point here, community engaged co-creation would help us to simultaneously generate business and social value. That's really important. And then I said there are different models. It's very hard for me to suggest one size fit model all, but I have outlined some of the criteria that we could use to design our own model. And third, we need to think about what are the best practices. So we could or we should keep on adopting those best practices at individual, organizational, and project level. And there is a key role the government could play in community engaged co-creation to be able to simultaneously generate business and social value. And finally, if we want to make sure that output of these co-creation projects would last beyond the co-creation life cycle, I have outlined some of the key aspects we need to consider. So in case you wonder from where this knowledge is coming from, these are a few papers that I have published, but you can see more papers in my profile. And I could guarantee that all are ABS 3-star, 4-star papers, so kind of externally validated knowledge that I have shared with you. And also 2 other projects that I lead at the OECD. We'll be publishing these 2 reports in July in the EU Open Science Forum. So some of the material comes from that project as well. So I would like to acknowledge their contribution as well to this project. And thank you very much. So if you want to discuss anything, I would be very happy to be in touch with you. Drop me a line. I would be very happy. We all have to co-create knowledge. And again, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here.
I'll be talking more from a business perspective, but also I really think there's a huge connection with policymakers and making a better world. So really thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate that. So I'll take you through some, it's not academic research, but research I spent a lot of time. I'll start with good news. I'll give you some bad news. And I'll finish with some good news. There's going to be a small case study that we will work together. So all that in 45 minutes. My love to project management started when I was fired from a big consulting firm. I was high up on the hierarchy, and I wanted to become partner. And the partner said, listen, project management is not something for senior leaders. It's not strategic. Anybody can do it. It's low cost. It's a commodity. So thank you very much, Antonio, but you're out. And I said, how can smart people, educated people ignore the value of project management? How is that possible? How can policymakers don't see the value of projects? How can CEOs don't see the value of projects? I just couldn't get it. I just didn't understand. And there was a big gap. There was a glass ceiling that I wanted to break. So I've dedicated about 20 years to try to understand why senior leaders don't appreciate the value of project management, and then how can we shape that? How can we change that? So one of the big findings of my research was that business schools don't teach project management. In the MBAs, just top 100 MBAs, just 2 teach project management. The rest are just electives, so we're changing that. I've changed yesterday. Hulk University in Dubai said we want that for our MBA. So slowly we're getting to business schools to embrace project management as a core skill for future leaders. So, but there was a huge gap. So I tried to influence senior leaders. I said I want to influence through PMI, and I was chairman of the Project Management Institute 2016. I was board member. But 2 main things I wanted to do as chairman of PMI, I launched the Brightline Initiative. I don't know if you're familiar, but was a sort of a think tank connecting a consortium of partners, education companies, to influence, to connect the gap between our strategy and projects. So that happened for about 5 years. The other thing, my goal was to create with IPMA all the great associations around project management that we were not working together. I thought we had to work together. I failed on that. I think there is a lot to do in the association world on project management to co-create, and we're not doing that. So that was in 2016. I left PMI for a few years now. But and the other big for me, my goal, I failed on my PhD. I didn't manage to finish. So I'm really proud to see so many young students and also academic already here that you made it. But what I wanted to do is I want to publish with HBR. In the business world, there's nothing more influential than Harvard Business Review. And they had ignored project management for years. The latest book on project management is like 10 years old and like not really to the point. And so I was pleased to convince them after 5 years and said, listen, projects are important. And we got published the book last year, but more important is the magazine who finally dedicated a theme around project management in November, December, with one of my articles, but more the other professor and Ami on the psychological safety in projects. So has been really focused on shaping and trying to influence senior leaders. So my talk is about that. These are some of the clients I've been advising, consulting. Just quickly, 10 years ago, I got calls from project managers. Listen, my project is not working. 5 years ago, I got calls from project management offices. They said, listen, we have a challenge here and we don't know how to. Today, I get calls from CEOs, senior leaders, saying, listen, I have a problem. Yes, so senior leaders are finally understanding that this is a big issue. And the chief editor of HBR, Harvard Business Review, told me, Antonio, listen, your projects are your future. And I say, yes, Adi, and you cannot imagine how badly and poorly projects are managed by senior leaders, by CEO, by politicians, because they don't understand the fundamentals. So we need to do something about that. And the second call that I get most often now is this one. Listen, Antonio, I don't know how many projects we have in this organization. I don't have a clue. Nobody knows. And second, they say, I think we have more projects than employees. How do I manage that? True. This is coming from top CEOs, top companies around the world, and leaders. We don't know. Can you help? So that's, I think, great for us, for our practitioners and experts in this field, because finally the recognition is there. So I'm going to cover 4 things. Just the project economy, which is a bit the theme of what you're talking. Then I think a painful point. I think we need to disrupt project management, and I will tell you about that. And then I will present a very simple framework, finish that with that. So the project economy, macro level is clear. We are going to see more projects now than in the last century. If you look at numbers through the recovery from the post-pandemic, we're talking about 30, 40 trillion from EU funding, from the US, everywhere there's projects, because this is worse than any crisis we've ever seen. So at macro level, it's clear projects are everywhere, and we need more project managers. My interest more than field is more the future of work. And if you look at one organization, one company, many years ago, like when you had Taylor and all these people and Henry Ford and work was operations, operational activities, right? Production and all these, and most of the people, these are people, resources, working budgets, management attention was dedicated to the day-to-day activities, running the organization, running a state, that was the focus of everybody, resources. Projects were just nice to have, yeah? And very few people were working in projects, company didn't have many projects. But over the years, the decades, we've become better with running the business, running the organization, more automation, more total quality management, Six Sigma, all the things, ERP system, SAP system. So operations have shrunk. And what you have on the other side is more projects. Obviously, the world is changing faster. There's more technology. So what you see is there's a slight shift over these years. There was a slight shift of resources shifting from operational activity to project-based work. What does it mean? People still had a job on the blue side, but at the same time they were having projects. Can you please join this project? And then can you please join that other project? And then the other project? The big resignation in the US is not because more operational work. The big resignation in the US is because there's so much projects and people cannot cope with that. Yeah, there's urgency every day, there's a deadline every Friday, and people are fed up with that. There's no prioritization. So that's the big issue, is that projects have overtaken. And the big disruption for me is not AI. The big disruption that the world is seeing is the future of work. Because when AI and robots take over and they become cheap to implement, like in a bank, I worked for a bank for 7 years, you see more technology than bankers. Why? Because AI take the operational work. So what happened in banking, like a bank in BNP Paribas or ING, is that today you have most of the people working project-based and in agile teams. So that's huge disruption. It's not that the project managers will have more work. We're talking about 60 to 70% of the employees, private, public sector, working project-based, and they're not prepared. They're not prepared. We are prepared, but we need to change. I'm coming to that next. I did some research survey with HBR for the book, and we noticed that 80% of the executive, 1,200 replies, said 80% said project management and projects are essential for the future of organizations. So there's some sort of awareness among senior leaders that they need to get better. I'm not going to go too much into detail on this one, but just highlighting a couple of things. To be successful in a world driven by operations, the blue part, when that was the priority, you need attributes in your business, in your organization, to be successful there. To be successful in a world driven by change, which is driven by agile and projects, is a very different set of attributes. And these are conflicting, right? And this is where most of the organizations are struggling today. I just pick up a few. To be successful in the world driven by operations day to day, the culture tends to be command and control. Everything is decided at the top. We just tell you and you just do. To be successful in a world driven by projects and change, you need to have a different culture. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about collaboration. It's about co-creation. Very different, right? The focus in the past was about really cost, volumes, efficiency, products. The focus today in most business is about transformation, innovation, right? And these are completely different because cost is against transformation and innovation, right? So there's a huge friction in terms of how do we organize organization, businesses today. The skills, deep expertise, that's what we built for 80 years. Deep expertise is you're an expert in marketing, you're an expert in finance, spend 25 years or all your career doing the same thing in the same field. We have millions of those, right? That's what we do. Deep generalists, we don't have. We don't have. Even project managers, they're not yet deep generalists. But that's what businesses did. This is what AI will take over. I wrote an HBR Post article a month ago. I said the role of the chief operating officer, number 2 in every organization, is dead. We don't need them. If 20% of the business is operations instead of 18, why do we need that? We need a chief project officer, not a PMO. It's very different. And last one, you know this for sure, but you were talking, Mutu, as well, is the way you organize yourself, the structures, which are fundamental for organizations. This was great, the best model to be successful in a world driven by efficiency, hierarchical, top down. This is a disaster. If you want to do a digital transformation project in a hierarchy, you're dead. It's going to fail 100%, no doubt. You need a much flatter organization. So the problem is companies I'm advising, L'Oreal, a French huge group, Moody's, they say, how can I shift? I need that part. We need that. You cannot be there. If you're a startup, you go there straight away, right? You don't want this. But most of organizations, universities, I'm sorry to say that, they're very much here too. Yeah. How do they get some agility? How do you get more project-driven work? How can they change the structure, the mindset, the culture? And so I spent a lot of time there having lots of fun because it's not black and white. But this is a big issue. Everywhere, public sector, the same. Some kind of highlights, just not to bother you too much with details, but job descriptions. I don't know if you're familiar with the thing called job description. This is a thing from the past. This was great when you were operational. Companies today, IBM, for example, they had 100,000 job descriptions. They're all dead. Why? Because people working in priorities. They were working in new projects with their clients. How can you put that in a job description traditional in a box? So I think that's a concept which is dead. COOs is dead. Job descriptions is dead. PMOs are dead. The models that we know. Because PMOs, everywhere you see, it's a box in a hierarchy, right? I've been in a PMO. You try to be as high as possible in the hierarchy. We're saying hierarchies are dead. So we need to reinvent PMOs too. Right? To be more agile, to be more strategic, to focus maybe on other topics than just, I'm extreme in my talk. I know there's always in between, but Resource allocation. This is a funny concept because I failed many times. I tried to use resource planning. So where are people working? How much capacity do I have? That was great when you had the blue space. Everything is a bit stable. You can put people in a box. You know where they will be in the next 6 months to 12 months to a year. But try to mix that. Try to mix that with people working on temporary assignments, project-based. It's impossible. It doesn't work. Right? So these are all concepts that we try to keep pushing forward when the world has changed. And at one point we need to say, hey, let's stop, let's think and reinvent. Prioritization and focus is one of the biggest challenges that senior leaders have. I was talking to a CEO of a big company. He told me, Antonio, we have 1,200 strategic initiatives. What? How many projects do you have? I don't know. Which one is more important of these strategic initiatives? They're all important. My God, so a lot of work there. This is a big challenge. Project managers, and I talk in every PM forum, we need to change, and I'm coming to that, okay? We need to disrupt and focus on other things. The good thing about this, we love this profession, is that for so far, when you talk about project management, competencies, you say train project managers, right? They need to get better. The thing different now is train everybody, train the whole organization. Please, we need these skills. It's not just project managers or PMOs or agile. Everyone needs these skills, which is great. And I love this because it was, I hate the debate, waterfall or agile. I'm going to cover that briefly. What a mistake. It's not just me, Antonio, with my simple research saying this is the world. I've cut a lot, but McKinsey, for example, 6 months ago, they were saying what are the most important skills that you need to build after the pandemic, and project management. McKinsey never talks about project management. It's like my partners, this is a mundane, a commodity. Suddenly they say, well, actually project management is important. When I talk project management, it's a bit of a reinvented view of project management, not the traditional. See, high up. And this is public sector, private sector. We are all project managers, right? We know that, they don't know that, now they need to know. Okay, so great. The projects are kind of ruling the world. Public, private, non-for-profit, but if you look at research, and this is very, it's not, I would not say academic research, but every paper that you see about success in projects from Harvard, from McKinsey, from Brightline, it's poor. It's just, 70% of the projects fail. And each of these research is a bit fluffy, okay. But it's consistent. It's like 60 to 70% of the projects fail. And I'm thinking, which other profession has such a poor performance? Which other profession? There's none, right? And I didn't realize when I was at PMI, but if I knew and I would have reflected, this is the thing that I want to change, or we should change, is we need to change that. We need to really make sure that, 60% or 70% of projects succeed. It's normal that we fail. We're innovating, of course, but not, and I'm not blaming anybody, but it's just something that is recurring and it's annoying me, and we need to do something. So, imagine you work in the healthcare sector and you in operations and 7 out of 10 patients die. Sorry, that's normal. If you're lucky, you're one of the 3. Or imagine you're flying airlines. Yeah? Sorry, 7 planes crash. 3 survive. So if you're lucky, you'll get your project. It will be successful. What a disaster, no? So it's a very high level, again, not very academic, but if you look at the reasons for project failure, we can group them in 3 sectors. There's 3 areas. Project management, the mindset of the project manager, the methods that we use. Just 1/3. We get all the blame, for sure. It's just 1/3, okay? Senior leaders, 1/3, or even more, is their fault, okay? They are not prepared. They're not trained. They don't know what they need to do. They're prepared to run the operations. They operate the day-to-day, the activities, not the change, not the projects. And then that leads also to the organization. We just saw that. For 20 years, I've been doing projects, transformation. I always, maybe you relate to this, I always wished that these people there, the senior leaders, will go for a training to understand what is to be a sponsor. I wish, then I started to pray, hopefully, because they're not doing the work. They're not showing up in the meetings. They don't have a clue. And then I realized now, with the book that I wrote with HBR, I say, we need to change that. These people will never get trained. Maybe the new generation that goes to MBAs and business schools and academic will start to understand, but this is 5, 10, 20 years next in time. So my vision when I teach, when I speak is, okay, do your stop there, project manager, but get the senior leaders involved. Grab them. One thing that you need to do before your project scope, get the senior leader and put them in your project. And tell them, listen, CEO, I need you in this project. If I don't have you, this project will fail. So it's a mindset shift. The priority is not there. The priority for project leaders are the senior leaders. And I offer them coaching. CEO, I can coach you, I can teach you what you need to know, what you need to do to help me to succeed. Okay? The same here. Yeah, these guys or ladies influence this part. So I'll tell them, listen, we need to change the culture. We need to be more agile in this part of this project. So it's a very different scenario which I learned that wait and pray and hopefully the senior leaders will go to a training. No, that will never happen. Okay, we need to get and grab them. Even before you define the cost of your project, get them. Okay? And then the other thing, it's, I love to reflect and think about different things, but you hear disruption, disruption, disruption everywhere, but I've been like talking in PMI and project management and everywhere in project management, we never talk about disrupting project management. How is that possible? We disrupt everything but no project management. We were poor performance. It doesn't make sense. No, I think we need to be a bit more self-aware, self-critics. The world is looking at us, so if we don't change, nothing will change and somebody else will take the space. So I think there's a sense of urgency here. Oversimplifying. So I just come up with 3 quick ideas. We all love this. Right? Triple constraint. We love that. First thing you learn anytime when you go to project management course. And it's great. I'm not going against what is great. I just think we need to rephrase, reshape it. I don't know what's the right word. I love to research projects around the world. I ask every MBA student to look at the project and analyze. And I have like a database of 3,000-4,000. We come across this case very often. This is a project which was scheduled for 4 years and was planned for 7 million. It took a little bit more than 4 years, 14. And it costed a little bit more than 7 public sector money. It took 102. What a disaster. What a disaster. Who didn't stop that project? Who didn't fire that project manager, right? That project should have never come to him. According to performance, terrible. Well, I'm talking about the Sydney Opera House. How can we say this project was a disaster? There's something wrong. There's something missing, right? So we missed. I'm not saying that the triple constraints are important, and we need to keep them, but we miss the benefit, the value, the impact in society. It's something that has not been developed, even if you have benefit management already for 20 years, but people are not using it. Maybe it's too complicated, maybe it's not accurate. But this is the main drive. That's why we do projects, not because of that. We do projects for there. If you cannot do that, don't do that, right? And unfortunately, methodologies, trainings, and so on focus on that part, which is a good foundation. And then something that I was amazed is that most successful projects everywhere is the people side, right? You have a team which is engaged, which is happy, which is challenging. I see that with this conference. Maria and the team, the volunteers, how much time did you put? But you like it because you're seeing the result today. The team makes a project succeed. And where is that in our formulas? Where is that in our frames? Where is that? It's nowhere. We start to talk a bit, but it's not the fundamental, the core. So I think we just need to expand and shift the focus. You can have great this part, but if you don't have that on that project will fail. Don't spend more time, right? That's what we've been doing for about 40 years. Love this one. This one of the silliest battles and more negative battles in the world of processes, projects, and methodologies is this one. There was a reason for Agile. It was a different world at 2001, and it makes sense. But over 20 years, we've seen so many companies saying, either you do Agile or you do waterfall, one or the other, one or the other. And if you do Agile, you're sexy and it's great, but your digital transformations will fail, but who cares? And if you do the traditional waterfall, you're old. Come on. And you need them both. You need them both. We need most of the digital transfer, the big transfer in COVID-19. That was a hybrid model. They use Agile, some part of the clinical trial and the phases, and then you had some program management. And so I think we need to shift of embracing all this. For me, that's what I call a deep generalist, that we know which tools are out there. I'm not going to be an expert in Agile, in Lean Six Sigma, and so on, but I love program management, but I know which parts of my program can be done in Agile. And if we're creating a new business or a new hub, let's use Lean Startup. Why would you try to plan it before doing it, right? So I think that's the type of skills and mindset that we will build in every organization, in every sector, in every public or not private, is embrace this. And I'm sure here there's more change management, product development. It's a tool set. It's like you have a tool set at home when anything gets fixed. You just don't have one hammer to fix all the problems. That's what we've been doing for 20 years, putting hammers on organizations to fix all the problems. That explains a bit the failure rate. Another thing, this is a hospital in Brussels, Belgium, where I'm based. And I pass there regularly. The hospital was starting construction 2016, completion 2020. 4 years for Brussels is quite good. They're super bad in projects, take forever. Some of them they never finish. But to my surprise, 2018, I was passing by and there's like balloons and celebration, and I stopped, I break, I turn, I said, they were opening the hospital 2 years in advance. I said, what? And they were, so the ground floor, first floor, second floor were operational. They had patients, babies being delivered. The third, fourth, fifth floor were still constructing. I think, wow, you can do that with an app, you can do that with a website, you launch it before it's ready, but the hospital, and it's not two different businesses, it's the buildings, it's the same. And I said, this makes so much sense. Why don't we do it before? Of course, you make life hell for this person, the project manager, because now you have patience. You need to work in hours which are not great. But who cares, right? Who cares? We're bringing benefits faster, not in 4 years, 2 years. And that's one of the biggest challenges for me, for project managers. It's not the time, the scope, that's great, that's important. The biggest challenge is how can we deliver impact and value and benefits faster? That's the biggest thing. And we're not prepared. There's no really a lot of methods. If I would have a method, I will tell you. If you'd have a method, tell me, and we write a book. But no, it's something that really, it will be a game changer. Okay? So no company, no organization, no public can wait for years anymore to deliver anything on their projects. Everything has to be fast. Of course, there's safety, there's quality, there's a lot of factors which make everything much more complex. Last point here, and we move into the last section. A friend of mine, Cesar, we were kids playing together, fighting a lot in Madrid. He's Atletico Madrid. I'm a Real Madrid fan, so we were fighting every weekend, on Monday especially. I lost track of Cesar. I met him 5 years ago in a conference in Singapore, business conference for senior leaders. I was speaking about my stuff, projects, project economy. He was talking about Microsoft and the cloud and something like that. And I realized, hey, Cesar, I've not seen you for 30 years. What? And you're vice president, like the biggest boss in Asia Pacific for Microsoft? Let's have dinner. So we went for dinner. We catch up. I talk about Real Madrid winning so much. But anyway, and then I asked him, tell me about your career. So he started selling Microsoft Office packages, the Word, Excels in Madrid. He was a very successful salesman. And at one point, Microsoft wanted to go the ERP market. And they bought a company. They didn't have so they bought Navision, a Scandinavian company, and they they asked Cesar if he wanted to manage the integration project. So he said, yes, I don't know anything about project management, but I learned and I'll do it. He did that very successful for 3 years. So the integration and the creation of the ERP business unit in Microsoft was a big success, led by Cesar. So I was very happy in the dinner. Cesar, you understand what I do and what we do. And I asked him, which project did you take after, Cesar? Because that's, did you take something more strategic? And he told me, Antonio, no, I didn't take another project. I said, what? You didn't take other project after leading your project successfully? Are you crazy? This is what we do in this world. We finish a project, we do the next one. And he said, no, Antonio, why? I was the person that knew more about this business unit than anybody in Microsoft. I told my bosses I wanted to be the managing director of the ERP business unit. Why should I give it to somebody else? It doesn't make sense. Why on earth, if I'm the person that spent 3 years non-stop working on this project, I need to give it to somebody else? Can you explain? And I was not able to explain. I said, this is the way we do things. Well, in public sector, you do that. In consulting, you do that. But why within an organization you need to do that? We just kept replicating things and we need an explorer. So there's nobody better prepared to run what we build than a project manager in some cases. Okay, so just telling a couple of things to describe. So this is the project life cycle that we learn, that we use. We ignore innovation. We don't know what happens. It's not covered. We just do execute. We ignore what happens after. We don't care. As soon as possible, just throw it to somebody else to run it. And benefits, we put 1 or 2 KPIs, but hard to monitor. That's today. That's the last 40. 80% will be disrupted. 80%. That's the big disruption about project management. I think we need to play a role here in ideation, innovation. We need to be learning design thinking. We need to be facilitators. We need to be referees in organizations where we say, this idea is too early. We don't do it. This idea we can do with Agile. This idea we can do in startup. And only that one we'll do as a project. We'll do that, but the good thing is that, again, another topic that we don't talk a lot, maybe you do, I met somebody talking about artificial, we have ignored technology in project management. We manage projects with softwares which are 40 years old. It's just insane. It doesn't make sense. So there are good initiatives, research being done on project selection. I met somebody working on big data to make your plan WBS in 5 minutes instead of 5 weeks. All this reporting, I don't know any other profession where you spend half of your time chasing people to get data for your reports that nobody reads. Yeah, so why don't we get a machine to do that? And we do what matters, which is stakeholder management and value creation. And like I said, sometimes, why not? We should run what we build. Not all the time, but sometimes. And the benefits for me is that most important. I'm a bit sarcastic, but I tell my people, don't bring me a project plan with deliverables or artifacts. I don't care. That's your problem. Bring me a plan with the benefits. When are we going to start getting that? And my next question, when are we getting the value? Second question, can you do it faster? What do you need from me to make it faster? How can we have more impact faster in society, in kids, in education? How can we do it faster? Okay, better and faster. I don't know how much time we have. I will rush through the list. Who's? Go on? Sure? I'm a project manager. I'd like to finish on time. I feel bad. Sure? Can I have 10 minutes? Sure? Okay. Because I'm going to make you work a little bit. And then we'll wrap up. So I did business school. I love business theories. And what happens with this is that the most successful are super simple. Michael Porter, 5 forces. You can do strategy with your team without being a PhD in strategy or a consultant from strategy. You just get everybody aligned and can contribute, right? That's what you want to get engagement. Kotler, Philip, marketing, 7 Ps. Super simple, 7 Ps, you can define your marketing plan. Business model, Alex Osterwald and Pignon, good friends from Lausanne. The business model canvas, super simple, 9 boxes. And you can have a good discussion about your current business or the next one. Agile was super simple, just a couple of pages, 12 principles. And then the question, what is simple in project management? Do you know any framework that is simple? Do we know any framework? I come from PMI, sorry, and like I said, I think we're all family. But the PMBOK is 752 pages. Who's going to read that? Nobody. You will prepare for the PMP to try to read that together. But that's it. Who's going to read that? Do you expect your sponsor to read that? No. The stakeholders, no. So I think what happens is that we do our stuff great. I tell you, we can do better, but nobody understands. Nobody understands. We're isolated because it's complicated with a good reason of being complicated. But we should not be sharing the complication with them. We just need to make it simple for them so that everybody can contribute. So that led me to create a project Canva just inspired by Alex and Eve from the business model. I said, we need to find a way to simplify. You need to keep everything, okay? Shape it, focus on value. But I just try to put everything in one page. So you have the why. For me, the why is the most important. We often forget that. I think business cases are made to be approved. So 9 out of 10 business cases are approved, and that's wrong. I think it's more about the opposite. It's about looking at options, exploration. But anyway, I introduced the concept of purpose because I think people in projects get motivated, engaged, excited, not because your project has a 6% return on investment. Anybody gets excited by a 10% return on investment or 15? No. People get excited, engaged because there's a higher purpose, because you're going to achieve something that matters. Even if this conference, just networking, meeting all of you, this is so much richer than whatever return on investment you plan. But we've defined project benefits often on the financial side, and we forget about what are we doing. And the worst thing is that we always talk about the system. We're developing new system, and we forget to say that we're doing this system because there's a reason for that. It's a good example, a project manager working in my company. I asked her, why are we changing this system? And she said, well, because the project is about changing and building a new HR system. And I asked her, why do we need an HR system, new one? She said, because this new system has a kind of community functionality. So, and why do we need community functionality in our HR system? And she said, because our people are disengaged, they're leaving, they don't feel belonging. And with the community, they'd have communication and social media will be closer to them. And then I asked her, why do you want to have that more engaged people? Because it's going to impact our company. We're going to be better. So you see, Sarah, you're moving from an HR system to a project that's going to create more engagement in our company. Why do we talk about the system? Who cares about the system? Who gets excited? Nobody. Talk about your project is about creating more engagement in our employees. And we're going to measure that in January with the annual survey. And our goal is to get 50% increase. That's the way we should be talking about projects. Always with the why. Never with the business case. Never with the deliverables. Is why are we doing the project? And if you cannot put a why in your project, don't do it. Stop it immediately. You're wasting time. And it's going to be painful. Here, of course, I wanted to highlight the role of the sponsor. The sponsor, if you don't have a sponsor engaged in a big project, it's a failure. Public sector, it's failure, 100% guarantee. So if you don't have that, stop the project and talk to that person. Then the rest of the things you know, and then the organization, the culture. So it's not perfect, but I think it helps. It's already used by many, many companies just to simplify, right? And if you don't mind, I want to do a small exercise with you. It's a video of 3 minutes, and we're going to use it, okay? You don't know anything about this project. It's a project which was very important in the Obama administration. They created a platform, an ecosystem, which was giving access to all the lower and medium class citizens to healthcare, cheap healthcare. And they created this platform, healthcare.gov. So I have a 3-minute video, just give you a little of background, and then we're going to look at the project through the canvas. Please, thank you. Just pay attention, 3 minutes.
So who is responsible charge as an integrator? Is QSSI one of our?
Who was in charge as it was being built?
Was in charge up to.
At that team, who is the individual?
Bill Snyder is the.
Michelle Snyder is the one responsible for this debacle.
Well, excuse me, Congresswoman, Michelle Snyder is not responsible for the debacle. Hold me accountable for the debacle. I'm responsible.
Thank you, I go back.
The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act came into effect in 2010, and now every American is required to have health insurance. The government set up a website that was supposed to be the easiest way for everyone to shop and get enrolled, and that was healthcare.gov, which is arguably the largest consumer-facing web app the government has ever built.
Recovered. Now recovered.
Enroll now, the health insurance marketplace at healthcare.gov.
And on the first day, October 1st, 2013, it didn't work.
Today was the first opportunity for millions of Americans to go to these new exchanges and sign up for insurance under Obamacare, and it turned out so many people tried to do that, computers crashed.
You probably heard that healthcare.gov hasn't worked as smoothly as it was supposed to work.
There were major problems all over the country. Websites were slow or crashed altogether, leaving a lot of folks angry and frustrated.
Healthcare.gov, as the website is known, had some serious glitches into its system yesterday.
There's going to be a lot of evaluation of how we got to this point. There is a larger problem that I probably could have identified earlier, and that is the way the federal government does procurement and does IT is just generally not very efficient. I think it's fair to say that we have a pretty good track record of working with folks on technology and IT from our campaign. Both in 2008 and 2012, we did a pretty darn good job on that. On my campaign, I could simply say, who are the best folks out there? Let's get around the table. Let's figure out what we're doing. And we're just going to continue to improve it, and refine it, and work on our goals. If you're doing it at the federal government level, you're going through 40 pages of specs, this and that and the other, and all kinds of laws involved.
Right now, the procurement process basically says that you have to buy a website like you buy a battleship.
How many different companies ended up working on the final product?
The contract that CMS ended up using to fulfill most of this work had 16 contractors on it. And if you go through and look at all of their subcontractors, there's, at least a dozen more.
The contractors that built healthcare.gov, all the large building insiders like CGI Federal and Lockheed Martin, were actually selected years before the Affordable Care Act passed, before anybody knew we could build a health insurance exchange. That's because the government likes to buy things using broad indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, or IDIQ contracts.
The exchange is comprised of 6 complex systems and involves 55 contractors, including CGI Federal, 5 government agencies, 36 states, and more than 300 insurers with more than 4,500 insurance plans, all coming together in healthcare.gov.
What do you think is the fix at this point?
There's only one fix for Obamacare. Got to repeal. This is never good. I mean, that's the only fix. We tried to delay it. We had a big fight about it. Now people know why we fought so hard. When they see how bad it is, when they see what's the notices they're getting, your policies being dropped, the increase in premiums, you're not going to be able to keep your own doctor, the website doesn't work, you can't compare price. Now they know why we fought so hard. The only answer is to repeal it. The president had to apologize for a web.
Apologize for a website. So if we look at this project, you just have about 3 minutes and a half. We can all fill in this canvas like this, right? It's a mess. It's a disaster. The why makes sense. There's a higher purpose. That's great. We have benefits there. But the sponsor, nobody knows who's the sponsor. They're talking to the Minister of Health, and she has no clue. She should be like the person who knows about this. Governance is a mess. The scope is broad. It's the biggest website, but we all know that if you have a big scope, just break it in pieces, right? It's not too complex. The time is inefficient. You have all the money in the world. I think that shows also that if you have all the money of the world, your projects might not succeed if you don't have all the elements. Quality, how come they didn't test it? It's just crazy. Risk management, where is the plan B? You do it every weekend when you do a barbecue in the park, you have a plan B if it rains. Why these people cannot have it for the website? Procurement, what a mess. Nobody knows how many contractors were working there. Stakeholders, the Republicans against, change management poorly done, and then you see the public sector here in the US, very, very slow, bureaucratic for an IT project. So this is already telling you this project is going to fail, and you don't need to do it now. We could have done this analysis in January 2013, 9 months before the launch. It would have been the same colors. But then who dares to go to Obama and say, Obama, your favorite project is going to fail? We can predict project failure. I'm convinced about that. And this tells you that this project will fail unless you take action on all the red, right? For example, this one is difficult to challenge, but what would you do as project manager if the organization is slow? I would go to Obama and say, Obama, listen, we need to go fast, we need to take decisions quick, we need a flat structure. Can you make an executive order for this project? Just move me out from the organization, put me in another different building, there we'll apply our policies and we go fast. That's what we need to do, not just complain saying, well, processes and bureaucracy, no. Next, I talked to you quickly, the opposite, green, everything, COVID. What happened there? Co-creation, higher purpose, saving people's life, right? Interesting, the CEOs who usually never spent a second in a project. I talked to the person in a podcast from HBR, they had interviewed the CEO of Pfizer, and the person asked him, how much time did you spend on this project? He said, 100% of my time to develop the COVID. How much time do you spend in other projects? Never. So that's the solution. If you don't get the CEO working in a big project, that project is going to fail. What's my first thing to do? Go and talk to the CEO. Say, listen, I need your time. I need half an hour every 2 weeks. Sense of urgency, clearly hybrid approach. They were taking risks, a bit of agile, everything. Long-term partnership with regulators even is possible. You can work with regulators and competitors, exactly what Muthu was saying. This is one of the biggest things that frustrates me the most, is if your projects are your future, why don't you put people working 100% on them? Why don't you get the best people to work on your future 100%? Why they need to be 10% or 20% of their time with other priorities? I just don't get it. These people are useless in my projects. It's just making my project slow down. Why can't you not extract, like they did for this project? Let's take them and put them in a project space, 100% dedication. How a company with 10,000 employees cannot take 50 and put them in a project just to deliver a strategic transformation? I don't get it. If you can do a bit of research on that, that would be helping a lot of people, because everybody's entrenched in their day-to-day operations, public, private sector. Okay, so clearly you put the two canvases, and again, these canvases are for free. You can download, you can change them. You can see, you can ask a kid which project has more chances of succeeding. You don't need a 50-page document to prove that, right? It's there. And I'm not saying disregard the rest. The rest, we need that. But just we want to reach 80% of our stakeholders. We want to make them understand. We want them to contribute. So it's simple. In 20 minutes, you can teach it. Everyone understands the key elements. You can read it. You can communicate. People can come down. So it's not the solution, but it does help. And the last thing, I think we've used projects to build things and to change organizations, but I think there has been a point where it misses that projects are more than just what we think they are. I think they are like a strategic tool for governments, for organizations to make a better world. It's not just a project on time and cost. It's just the tool that can change the world. And they're cheap. It doesn't require, right? It's something that we can do, but when you ask people, I come across people who retire, and I ask them, what was the most exciting moment in your career? 99% they tell me it was a project I work on. It was not my day-to-day, it was a project. Some people say this project failed, but I still remember. Some others say this was amazing. I really love that. It was a project. So I always, when I talk to senior leaders or people, I say, what is the one project that is going to transform your organization and engage your employees? What's the project that people, when they go home and talk to their friends and families, say, I'm working on this project? It's not the purpose. The purpose is important, but the purpose without a project is useless. So what's that project? Is it sustainability? Is it about reducing waste? That's the project one. Is it about going to Mars in 2024? What project are you working on that makes you proud, that is challenging? And most of the companies cannot tell me that. We don't have that, but we have 1,200 strategic initiatives. Thank you very much. No, you need one. And the same for governments. I think I'm excited to go around the world and see. Sometimes I was in Egypt a month ago, and they have a Vision 2030. I say, wow, this is what I love. This is what, and people talk about Saudi. I'm going there now. I was there in Jeddah. Everybody knows about 2030. Everybody. And it's exciting. Maybe you don't make everything, but it makes the people proud. I'm in Brussels, so sometimes I talk with politicians there. I say, what's the project for Europe? And I tell them, big bunch. The last time I was excited, proud to be European, was when you introduced the euro, because it was a project that was getting us together, stronger, breaking currencies to have one. I was proud. But this is 20 years ago. What's the project that makes us proud today? Nothing. Well, Eurosong Festival, but that's a mini project. It's not a transformative. So I think leaders have not understood that projects is more than just delivering, changing, creating. It's a powerful tool that can change the world. I always say, if we would be in the table of COP26, United Nations climate change, they wouldn't need 26 to move and change. Yeah? We need to be in these places. We need to help people make change happen through projects. And that's it. And just a quick pledge. This I'm trying to say. One thing we need to do is double the success rate of our projects, regardless of where we are. Because we'll increase credibility and we'll make a better world. So that's kind of the end. And a lot of value generated, GDP of China on a yearly basis, just like doing projects better. So that's it. Thank you. Sorry for running a bit late.